Now, medical schemes 2024 membership contributions are currently in the spotlight as the rates for next year have just been released. The weighted average contribution increases declared by the schemes range from 7.5% to 15.97%. So where people might assume they will not be paying a lot more for medical cover in 2024, they likely receive fewer benefits or have to pay more. Most schemes have opted for very low increases during COVID years, which are now biting them. Well, that's what they say. Let's find out from the principal officer at Fedhealth, Jeremy Yatt, who joins me now. Jeremy, good afternoon. Welcome. Fedhealth is one of the schemes that has been on the high side when it comes to increases for membership contributions next year. I think you're going up by 10.8%. Is that justified?
That's correct. Thank you for having me on your show and giving me the opportunity to present perhaps a different view that people have. There's a big misunderstanding that medical schemes are insurance companies, and there's this idea that we are here to make profits and that we try and put up the prices as much as we can, the costs of medical aid contributions as much as we can, in order to maximize profits or something like that. Medical schemes are owned by members. They're similar to cooperatives or mutuals, and they are certainly not for-profit entities, and their design is to actually protect your assets, to protect your investments, so that if a medical catastrophe happens, you are not digging into either taking out debt to pay for it or digging into your investments to fund it. And the whole idea is that it's really there for catastrophic events, operations, major medical treatment, expensive drugs and the like. So people have this idea that the medical aid's going up so much because they wanting to have holidays in Mauritius or something. But we really are, the important part is that we stay sustainable and that we are there in the future to meet your future medical aid needs, your future medical costs. And we've seen examples of schemes that have gone belly up, and the attendant sort of stress that it puts on the members of those schemes as they try and find other cover.
Here's a question. Here's a question. Sorry, Jeremy, let me come in there. Sure. Is it unreasonable for us to expect medical aid schemes, the contributions to go up by CPI plus maybe 2%? Is that too little? Currently, CPI is at around 4.8%.
So this is a complicated question, and of course it means we're going to get a complicated answer. In our environment, there are a number of things that we are obliged, in terms of the Medical Schemes Act, to fund. They're called prescribed minimum benefits, and we have to pay for it in full. And there are various mitigation measures we can put in. You have to use a network provider, for instance, to try and manage those costs. The other part of the problem, so that drives up the cost. That on its own just drives up the cost. Medical aids are complicated. Medical procedures are complicated. Humans are complicated. So your ability to manage these types of costs is difficult. Now, if every single person that was employed in this country was obliged to be on a medical aid, it would bring the costs down. What we have is generally companies who insist on their employees being on medical aid, or we have people who know that they have health conditions being on medical aid. And so we find that there's a preponderance of higher claiming members, older members, on medical aid. Young people don't like to be on medical aid because they don't see the value in it. They don't see that they have a medical issue. They don't foresee that anything will ever happen to them. And so now they are going to be paying all this money, and it is expensive. No one is confused about this.
Are you having to adjust as high as you've done at Fedhealth, for example, at 10.8%, because you were part of that collaborative effort during 2020 and 2021, during the COVID years, where there was a very low than CPI contribution increase?
No. So Fedhealth has always taken a prudent approach to its increases. And when we went out, we weren't happy with a 10.8% increase. But the important thing is we didn't cut benefits. Now, there's another scheme that's gone out with 7.5% weighted increase. And what they've done is they've slashed away at your savings. People don't really understand what savings are, but savings is your portion of the medical aid contribution. So while the gross premium has gone up, the gross contribution has increased by 7.5%. Your savings have been reduced by 5%, 5 percentage points. And that kind of means that the risk factor of your contribution has probably gone up by about 11 or 12% as well. So
okay,
there are ways to do this. You can cut benefits, you can do it in sneaky fashions, or you can just say you're not going to pay for
but
these
my
things
question
anymore.
my question is because of the low increases that you put in place during the COVID years.
We didn't.
You didn't. Yes, Fedhealth, you didn't.
We
okay.
didn't. So what we did and what we continue to do is adopt prudent increases. Other schemes did. They went out with very, very low increases, and we looked at it with a bit of bewilderment, thinking we're not sure how they're going to do that. And some of it seems to be coming home to bite them. But in our case, we always adopt a prudent approach to our increases, and that's why it may seem high, but it's actually not.
Okay, a few weeks ago, the Council for Medical Schemes advised medical aids, the schemes like yourselves at Fedhealth, to increase around about 5%. You keep your increase around 5%, but why have you failed to do that? Why don't you listen to the advice of the CMS?
Well, would you like us to be insolvent next year? I'm not sure what the weather's like on planet CMS, but there is absolutely no way that schemes, and you see it, I mean, all the schemes have come in with high increases. There's no way that you can do that without fundamentally cutting benefits and readjusting the way prescribed minimum benefits work, for instance. And the CMS and Minister of Health have indicated they're not interested in that. So we have to do what is necessary in order to keep the scheme sustainable. And it's important members understand the reason we do this isn't, as I said earlier, to make profits. We're not for profit. It's to make sure that we're there next year and the year after and the year after that.
Okay, just break it down for us in terms of layman's terms, not just your Fedhealth members, but just using yourselves as an example, just broadly. This latest increases, you said, for yourselves means you don't have to cut down on the benefits, which is important, I guess, for your members. Others have gone the other way. They've given reduced increases year on year, but they are affecting medical savings.
Right. So what that means, if you're a member with a scheme that had a savings account where the savings have been reduced, instead of you running out of your benefits in June, like often happens, and I'm sure if you've been on a scheme, you've had a similar experience, you're now going to run out of your benefits in May or April even, because you'll just have that much less. Your savings account is there for day-to-day benefits. Some schemes transfer risk into your savings. So they'll say, if you go for an MRI scan, we'll pay for it from your savings, not from risk. But don't worry, it accumulates, so it's all right. And people are a bit baffled. What does accumulate mean? What's the threshold? What's the above threshold benefit? I don't understand. And what it means is that the scheme itself isn't as funding as much of the benefits, the claims, as much as they should be. And in fact, they're passing that burden on to you. So when you're a medical aid member, you need to be very clear about what it is you're getting. It helps to get advice from consultants, brokers, but it also helps to just actually look closely at your scheme and understand, how does it work? If I use a network provider, how much less do I pay? If I use a generic medicine, I won't have a co-payment. So how do I do that in order to ensure that I get the best value from my medical scheme?
So why, as we conclude, Jeremy, in your view then, just tell us briefly why it would become important for me to know exactly what I'm covered for in my medical aid?
You don't want to have a surprise. And that can be, you think you've got a medical aid and you're covered, and then you go for a procedure, they diagnose, there's something wrong in your tummy and you need some kind of a scope, and I want to put a scope to have a look at it. And then you find out that because you went to a certain provider, that scope, you're going to have to pay in 5,000 Rand or 7,000 Rand yourself for that scope and the scheme will cover the rest. Now, if you know this and you buy a gap cover product, or you just have money set aside for this eventuality, then it's not a problem. But if you don't know it, and now you're stressed as it is about what the scope might find, you are further stressed by having to find the money to pay for that part of the procedure. And co-payments, we must understand, are there to manage certain risks, so that people don't just go for procedures. And you might think, well, who on earth would do this? But you'd be surprised. A lot of people do. They go for procedures that they don't need.
Thank you, Jeremy, for your time and explanations and insights. That's Jeremy Yatt, speaking, of course, on behalf of medical scheme Fedhealth.